The breath in my lungs just can't hold me. No man. Start a revolution with no man control. Start a revolution with the breath in my lungs. Sound off. Sound off. The breath in my lungs just can't hold me. No man. Start a revolution with no man control. Sound off. Start a revolution with the breath in my lungs. Sound off. Sound off.
Welcome everybody to Sound Off. How are you guys doing here tonight? We are one man short right now, technically two men short, but we have one man who is going to be joining us in about 10 minutes. So if you guys are just now joining us, we want to thank you guys so much for being here tonight. So we have part two of this crazy thing that's been happening in the Christian music world. So, guys, if you are new to Take on the World TV, make sure you like, subscribe, follow us here. We got lots of great content, lots of fun stuff that's happening. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and somehow get this out of the screen here. Yeah, there we go. So, we have a fun show here tonight. Once Johnny gets here, Johnny will be here shortly. We're super excited for him to be here because I know he's got some fun stuff to share as well. So, guys, thank you for everybody joining into the chat. Joining us is Doug Kirshner and Elijah Rust here to start off the show. Before we jump into tonight's topic, after last episode, is there anything that you guys changed your opinions on now that so much more has come to light in regards of and it could be a yes or no, and we're going to get into it, but have you guys changed your opinions from last show? Has it gotten stronger? Has some things changed with you with all the information and allegations, all sorts of stuff happening?
Elijah, you can answer this one first.
I was going to let you go. All right. Wow, I thought that the last show, everything we covered and talked about was pretty out there. With Michael Tait, and then shortly after that, all this other stuff started coming out. I know that all of us are on a group chat, so we're all kind of bouncing articles and thoughts back and forth, and for me it just got way worse. I mean, it just exponentially with a lot of the new allegations that came out.
So I'm a little bit still on hey, let's see how this actually pans out kind of feel, but the reality is that
I think we're losing Doug. Doug, you weren't meant to say that live. Doug, if you can hear me, why don't you chime out and then come right back in? Can you hear me? All right.
It looks like coming back there. Maybe.
Yeah, there we go. Well, okay. Why don't you start from the beginning, Doug? We lost you right when you started saying.
I was getting angry.
Okay, I figured.
I'm just joking. I was like saying.
Okay, Doug. I think we're losing every word, Doug. All right. Okay, yeah. So I think Doug was saying that, if you guys aren't familiar with Doug is a works with the juvenile department here in Ohio, and so he is very much the system that you're proven guilty or innocent based upon a court of law. So that is Doug's approach on all of that. I could tell you this, and I entitled the show tonight. If you're seeing it, CCM's biggest secret is this Michael Tait. CCM's biggest secret. We've heard that multiple times throughout the past couple weeks. Corey Asbury, a modern singer, come out and said that this was, Nashville, Christian Nashville's, biggest secret, that they've known about this stuff for a long time. We're going to go into an article of everything that happened with the Newsboys owner, Wes Campbell. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. I think all of these things are going to start to implicate what I called a Christian pandemic. There's something that is not only just happening within the industry of Christian music in regards of abuse, living double lives, but this is stems, and this will be a bigger theological discussion, because this is rampant amongst all churches. This is not a secret in so many different places, and I know we're going to disagree on that, but I know right now, Doug, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in good. So me and Elijah are going to jump off for a second. We actually have a guest joining us here for a few minutes. He's got a few minutes to share with us. We're going to let Doug interview him. Doug's a 80s aficionado, hip hop, rock, metal specialist of all things. He may not know this next guest. His name's MC Faith. He's a part of a group from the 80s. And we're going to jump off. He did some early production with a lot of the guys that we're going to be talking about tonight way back when. So I hope this is an engaging conversation for you, Doug, because I'm going to let you do this. So me and Elijah are going to jump off. He's in there. I can see him in there. So why don't you introduce yourself to him and then ask him a few questions. And we're going to see how this rolls, okay?
All right.
All right. So here comes MC Faith. Me and Elijah are going to jump out, give him a bigger screen for our guest.
Hey, MC Faith. What's going on, man? Are you able to hear me? Hello? Chris, I don't think you can hear me.
Okay, it looks like he's having some trouble. He just messaged me on that side, so maybe we'll just chime in and we'll pick him up later in the episode. He said he'll maybe try to call in an hour or something. He's having problems with his mic, so we'll pick that up a little bit later. So let's just go ahead and full blown jump in. Doug, why don't you say what you said before, because nobody got a chance to hear you.
So, the more we started passing things around and more stories came out, the more I investigated stuff. It's, I try to have the benefit of the doubt, having working in the legal system, the justice system. I try to see that every story has three different parts, and where does this fit in with the truth, Michael Tait, and everybody else. I think one of the main things that has happened is that my trying to give the benefit of the doubt has lowered, and the kid in me that grew up listening to this stuff, it's screaming out. I'm sad because if Michael Tait was doing this, who else was doing this? Or what else do we not know about that's going to come? I mean, obviously, this is going to rock the Christian music world, and more people are going to be forthcoming. And I'm afraid of the tidal wave that's going to happen, because remember, I toured with a lot of people. I've been at festivals with a lot of people. I've seen things, done things, and there is not an innocent among any of us because we're all sinners. But
Yeah, but Doug, and maybe Elijah chime in on this. There's a vast difference, and this will get bigger into the bigger discussion here. There's a vast difference of us as believers saying, okay, we're not perfect, we haven't lived perfect lives, um, but living in habitual, continual sin is vastly different than falling or making mistakes. This shows a bigger heart issue, and there's so many theological avenues that you could go down with this discussion, but these types of things of people in these high-powered positions, whether it be people who are adored, who stand on the stage and sing songs, or pastors who stand on a stage and are the spiritual leadership for, let's be honest, let's look at Hillsong, tens of thousands of people who are just in their congregations of 100,000 people, and then New York City, right? We had both Hillsong pastors doing the same things, living double lives. Let's speak on that for a second before we get into some of the newer stuff that's come out, and let Johnny come in for some of these things because he gets a lot of firsthand info on this. But
right,
when we say that, we all fall short, we all have issues. This is vastly different, and I want to see if you guys agree with me. It's vastly different than what we're seeing with these men who live double lives, who are in these high-powered positions. Where do you speak? Well, let's start with you, Elijah. Where do you see that?
I agree with you. I think that there's definitely a difference between um, people in these higher positions that are, um, being held to a higher standard because of their influence over whether it's a congregation or, um, you know, uh, their following, as far as an artist goes. Um, I think that for me, when I look at the Michael Tait incident here that we're discussing, is he sorry? Like I read through a couple times. I've read through his apology, right? I actually just kind of like went through it again before we jumped on here tonight, just to refresh myself a little bit. And he had this very like repentant attitude about it. But is he being repentant because he's truly sorry for what he did, or is it because he got caught? And and it's the same thing with like I can't remember the name of the pastor we were just talking about with Hillsong in New York, the one that was just hanging out with Justin Bieber and stuff. What's his name? I can't remember, but Carl Lentz,
Yeah.
right? But same thing, got caught, right? Had a repentant attitude. So, you know, would they have continued? You look at Michael Tait for how many years and years and decades. It looks like we're going to read that article that looks like it, backdates decades. So, this type of behavior that he's just habitually been doing the same thing, and doesn't seem repentant of it at all until he gets caught and it gets kind of brought to light. So that for me is kind of like the bigger issue. I would say is that they got caught. You really repentant? For me, I have a hard time believing that.
Yeah. Welcome, Johnny. Johnny has just joined us straight from Canada. He had a dinner appointment. So how was dinner, Johnny?
It was delicious. Thank you. Whatever, I don't know what I missed, but I agree with it all and burn it all down.
We just started.
I said a lot, Johnny. So
Yeah.
you just agreed with a lot.
No, and that brings up a bigger question here. Elijah, not to throw people under a bus, but you were part of a headship at one point in your life that had infidelity that lasted for 10 years as a head pastor. It only came to an end when they were caught. And, so, this can get to a bigger issue. Like, and maybe we can toss this around. We don't have to discuss this exactly now, but does this come to a bigger theological discussion when we, because we're going to start talking about, something that Doug's pretty passionate about, once saved, always saved versus, you lose your salvation. Where does these types of things come in and where do they play out? And where is the absence of the Holy Spirit? When does the Spirit leave you? One of the verses that, we can, and I've talked about it before, but, when we continue in sin, grace will no longer abound. What does that truly mean? And what does it mean for these people? Are we saying that that their faith, if they had faith, are they in these positions? Pastors could be in positions just to collect a paycheck just as much as a Christian singer, supposedly Christian singer, can be in a band, leading millions of people all around the world in their music, just to collect a paycheck. So we have that type of mindset as well that we can discuss. But where is and where do you guys think look like when the Holy Spirit stops having conviction in your life, you start walking away due to your disobedience, and what does that look like? And maybe we can start with the most controversial, and then Johnny, you can go next. So you know who I'm talking to, Doug.
I mean, that's a lot to take in.
It is, because you have a position right now, and I want to preface this. You have a position where innocent until found guilty. You're very headstrong in that. But where does this come down to if they are guilty and they've been doing this for so long? Everything I said wrapped into that, and all the discussions we've had over the years. Go for it.
Well, I mean, I wanted to make a comment on Elijah's, his take on it with everything that we do as a Christian is in the limelight when people know who you are, know what you stand for, right? And Elijah, you were talking about how when you were playing for the church and they got caught, and that's what brought it to light, and they seemed repentant, but they seemed were they truly repentant? None of us really know, for one. number two, can we, just because you're repentant doesn't mean that you're totally forgiven by the people. People don't have to forget. You don't, I mean, there's tons of people that have done horrible things yet have accepted Christ, and we have to believe that they're going to stand before God and they're going to be brought into heaven, right? Just because you say, I'm sorry, I'm repentant, I'm seeking God, doesn't mean that it's ever forgotten. And I think that's the one thing that, so like you, Elijah, I read the letter again. And the more I read it, the more it's like, will this be 15 minutes of not fame, but scariness to then usher in, hey, the people will forget. They'll forget. I'll go back to playing. Maybe I'll be playing small little churches or whatever, but I'll still have my music career. And people love a comeback story kind of thing. I don't know with this, but on the tune of, once saved, always saved, my stance on that. And that's never going to change.
So then, Doug, can a believer continually live in sin without conviction.
No, and I've talked to you about that. My personal heart, and I go back to something that my dad said to me. Once that little voice, the Holy Spirit, stops talking in your ear to convict you, once you've lost the conviction, you've lost. You've been turned over to a reprobate mind. And I think at the time of, because this stuff didn't just start yesterday with Michael Tait. It just didn't start the other day with Amy Grant cheating on her husband, or however you want to look at it. It takes years to build up to where we're at. And at some point, I have to believe that God has allowed him to be separated from the flock. But that would be up to him and God if God allows him back. I don't think any of us could ever know that.
All right, Johnny, keep it real for us.
I mean, there's a couple different things though. And I like what Elijah said. Now, did he write an apology because he was going to get caught, because this is going to come to light? Would he have continued to be the lead singer of the Newsboys if none of this were to ever have come to light? Probably. So, I mean, there's that side of things. The other thing is, what is the punishment? If none of this goes unpunished, then have we learned anything from this? In the sense that if all of these people are coming forward and saying this is what happened, and we've swept it under the rug. So then if he, let's say he then has his Tait career, solo career again, or he becomes the lead singer of insert whatever band, I won't go see him, but that's a personal choice. The question is, how many people will forgive and say, yeah, you know what, he messed up and we forgive him because that's who we are as Christians. We forgive and we're going to move on. I mean, it's the same thing with pastors who you said of infidelity, or pastors who, you know, steal money, or I mean, I guess it's the congregation's choice if they're going to want to continue to go to that church and, you know, listen to somebody preach.
Yeah.
But
And this,
Let me
yeah,
let
go
me
ahead,
jump
Elijah.
in with something that Johnny said. So this might, you guys may disagree with me on this, but I'll throw it out there. I think that ultimately, you know, we can all agree that like God has to hold Michael Tait accountable for his actions, right? But I think as well that as Christians, I think there's a certain level of, you know, being able to hold him accountable as far as like, you know, I'm not just going to accept the apology, right? I think that there's got to be some time here to see if there's like true repentance. I'm not just going to go buy your next album that you're going to release in 2 years and hope that everybody forgot it, right? Like, um, you know, I think, you know, for us as Christians, we can say, okay, we're going to push back on that and say, like, you know, you've been deceiving people and living a double life, you know, and deceiving your fan base for so long, and have, you know, abused and hurt people for, you know, how many decades. So we're not just going to, you know, jump right back in here and start buying your albums. And, you know, I think that there can be, obviously can and needs to be, you know, a spirit of forgiveness, but it, you know, I think it has to come at a cost of where it's like we need to see some time go by here to see if you're truly repentant, to see if you're willing to, you know, give your life back over to the Lord, as far as, you know, like turning away from, you know, all the wickedness you've been involved in, right?
Yeah. Well, let's, you know, I think some of the people in the chat, they're new to some of this. So they're going to be sharing. So let's go ahead. I'm going to recap for the people in the audience. If you guys are new to this topic, a lot of people, it's kind of, the CCM world, the Christian world wants to, like, okay, it was hot for a moment, and then now we want to settle it down. It's just like a political news story of the day. It kind of hopes that the weekend comes and everything gets wiped away, like the Epstein files don't exist. Um, Here's what Michael Tait, lead singer of the Newsboys, DC Talk fame, um, has been accused for now going on. The earliest reports show some of them, 2004, I believe, is the earliest I've seen. But it all started with a, two different guys coming out, getting them drunk, and sexually abusing these men. Um, so he's involved in homosexual activity, with abuse, and he's a complete drug addict, cocaine, all of these different things. Now, one of the things that came out right after our show is different. One particular person, and now Doug will say there's no way to prove this. One of the people came out and said, when you read that article of his confession, it said that he checked when he left the Newsboys in January. He went to a rehab center in Utah to get his life clean. Now, what people have reported seeing him fleeing to a tropical place, based on his flight pattern where it was heading, with two young men in January, that would put that story potentially as false. Is that true? Is that not? Is it correct? And, only God knows, and Michael Tait and the guys that were with him, and the people that saw him, if they're telling the truth. So there's so many more different things that have come out. Um, we've all saw this almost immediately after the next day, pretty much after we did our last show. We had the Newsboys sound man, who's out drinking with Michael Tait and a woman, and they get the woman drunk, is how the story goes from her side, and Michael Tait engages in watching them engage in intercourse, and the story goes that she would say she was raped in this instance. So there's so many heavy allegations, and if you guys don't know, that sound or lighting guy, whatever he was for Newsboys, is currently doing that for King and Country. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
yeah, and he has and there's no recourse, no nothing. So it comes down to um, he said, she said, what it all comes down to. So, yeah, Doug, there may not
Well,
be.
there was some video too, wasn't there?
Yeah, so there's some
Yeah.
hallway video footage, which does show Michael Tait grabbing a man's crotch.
Yeah.
But that's about as much as that you really see in this, other than they go into a closed room and the doorway shuts, because it is hotel footage. So that's the catch up, everybody. There's so much more. There's the grandson of Dottie Rambo, Southern gospel, gospel singer. Um, her grandson was 13 at the time, claims that Michael Tait exposed himself to him in the bathroom and did a little bit more. So there are allegations of younger. Um, have these things come to be completely proven to be true in a court of law? Absolutely not. So they are allegations. Let's be 100% forthcoming with the audience. But we said in the last show, and I think Johnny, you back me up on this. When there's smoke, there's fire,
Yeah.
and let's run it with that. So that, I think that, unless if I'm mixing anything, Johnny, that kind of gets everybody up to date on some of the meat and potatoes of the allegations.
Yeah, and again, I'm flabbergasted that if these are allegations, like why hasn't there been more to, like, is somebody putting together a portfolio of stuff and then the guy gets arrested for it, or are we just saying, oh, that was all in, like, I just don't understand. I don't get the legalities as to where we are, because if these are some strong accusations, and like how are we not, how is this not move forward at all? That I just don't get it.
I mean, so that's something I've been wondering, because and I think that's what has annoyed Chris so much with our conversations on our text, that the whole thing that happened with the Newsboys lighting guy. This was not even how long ago was it? A couple years ago, Chris?
I'd have to go back. Elijah, do you remember the date?
2010, 2011.
I have to look.
Yeah, it's definitely past the
Statute limit.
statute. Yeah, it's way past that.
But
There was
I
she did go to the police in that
in the
Right.
article, she went to the police. She made a report. But if anything was going to come of it, it would have happened already. I mean, I don't see a police department sleeping on something like that, especially when it's Christian involved, it's entertainment involved.
So then,
Unless somebody did some payola that got him out of it. But I mean, as we saw with even the article that just came out about the Newsboys management team, that's that.
And we're gonna jump into that, and we're gonna read that tonight, because that's gonna ask a bigger question as we get into that with the Newsboys owner. And we'll get into this, the silence of the CCM world for the most part. We'll talk about who's talking and who's not talking.
But Johnny, as far as charges coming, it can take a minute. I mean, if these are allegations that are just coming out, it can take a minute. It can take a year for them to do a full-fledged investigation, because any new allegation that comes out, they have to start from scratch.
Well, let me ask you this question, Doug. When was the first allegations of Sean Combs? When did Sean Combs, P. Diddy, when did those allegations first start to arise to where we're at right now with him about to, probably potentially face 7 years in jail as a max? How long did it take for that, and how long was he doing it?
I mean, I mean, as far as the general public knew,
correct. The public allegations that came
about a year,
right? So I mean, time will only tell what is true.
Right.
Okay, so continue. I will be right back. Continue.
I mean, so everybody wants a world like Law and Order, right? The TV show,
Right.
where the crime happens, and in a half hour they figured out who it is, and they then have the court hearing, and then whether they're found guilty or not, they're either going to prison or not. It doesn't happen like that. I mean, man, when when any person that I work with will say they'll get a new heavy charge, right? They'll be charged with, carjacking or something that has to do with a gun. Most of those cases, they'll sit in jail for 6 months before they even go for what they call a bind over trial.
Yeah, but he's in jail, Doug.
Yeah, but he's still considered innocent.
But he's still sitting in jail.
I got you. I mean, but do we know who's actually investigating? Is Nashville?
Yeah,
Is
who
the
knows?
state
No,
of
I get it.
Tennessee investigating? Because, I mean, maybe there's more allegations popping off in other states and other cities. And then if that happens, at some point it will become like a P. Diddy situation where the FBI gets involved.
I get it. All I'm saying is that you have allegations, and then you just see this guy just living his life, enjoying it, and more people coming out saying things, and wherever he is doing his whatever he's doing, writing new singles.
Yeah, but even looking at like P. Diddy, he knew the hammer was going to come soon, but just didn't know when it was going to fall. And then, he was living his life, and then all of a sudden the FBI came flying into every area that he had property because they didn't know where he was at, which house he was at. So, I mean, that can happen. I mean, if there's more allegations, if there's more charges, I mean, who knows if a lot of these are past the statute of limitations. Each state is different on the statute of limitations. I don't know. I mean, I would hate to be Michael Tait right now. I don't think I would be leaving my house. I think I would be having DoorDash deliver my groceries, and I would just not leave my house because even if you are innocent, the wrong slightest move can create a firestorm.
So let's go ahead. I'm gonna do a share screen. Elijah, I want you to go ahead and read this article for us.
Sure.
There's a couple. There's a couple pages here, but I think all of this reveals maybe a bigger issue, and we can discuss here after we read this. Let me know if you can see it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead and get started, Elijah.
Okay, Newsboys owner Wes Campbell steps down from GMA board, places Steve Campbell on leave, and reveals more Tait allegations. I think we're not starting on the first page, are we?
Are we not? No, we're not.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. There we go. There we go.
Earlier this week, Newsboys owner Wes Campbell, who also founded the management company responsible for the band, announced in a letter that he was stepping down from his board position at the Gospel Music Association, GMA, after being accused of covering up Michael Tait's alleged sexual misconduct. Campbell also revealed that members of his own family have come forward as alleged victims of Tait's abuse. On January 16th, Tait abruptly announced that he was leaving Newsboys. He had been the band's lead singer since 2009. Tait was previously a member of DC Talk, a band that had been on hiatus since 2000. Since leaving Newsboys, Tait has been accused of grooming, sexually assaulting, and drugging young men, including minors, as well as of watching a young woman be raped in 2014. According to its website, GMA's mission is to expose, promote, and celebrate the gospel through music, as well as to serve the richly diverse creatives and professionals within the Christian and gospel music industry by preserving the legacies of those who've gone before us and celebrating the work of today's artists. Campbell, who has been serving in the first year of a 3-year term on the GMA board, addressed his letter to board vice chairman Bill Reeves, GMA Foundation Chairman Zach Wamp, and the GMA Foundation Board of Directors. Given the most recent accusations against me personally related to a supposed cover-up of allegations surrounding Michael Tait and his time as frontman for the Newsboys, Campbell wrote, I submit this letter notifying you that I am stepping down from the board so as not to become a distraction. The Newsboys owner shared that he believes strongly in the work of the GMA and its mission to build the CGM Museum, but he informed them, I clearly cannot continue in my current role for the foreseeable future. Campbell told the board that due to allegations that have been reported on various news sites, his brother Steve has been placed on leave pending the results of an internal investigation about his knowledge of Tait's actions on the road. At the conclusion of the full investigation, I will submit a detailed report to GMA President Jackie Patillo, Campbell said, and before praising her leadership. Jackie has shown great leadership in our industry. Her record of excellence with impartiality speaks for itself, and I will submit the report along with access to all staff so she can independently review our findings. Campbell provided some details as to why he has remained silent following the allegations that have surrounded Tait and Newsboys, saying, I have remained largely silent these past weeks as we all learn together of the unfolding stories of reported victims sharing allegations against Michael Tait, but do not mistake that for a lack of care or concern for the alleged victims. their families, or anyone else impacted. Until we get the full scope of the several consecutive articles in conjunction with an initial investigation, I felt I could not even speak beyond our early statement of support for the alleged victims and call for any other possible victims to consider coming forward. Campbell admitted that he and his team were caught somewhat flat-footed and ill-prepared when the news of Tait's alleged sexual misconduct broke. We never imagined the stories we would learn, Campbell said, and shared that even members of our own families have now come forward sharing that they were victims too. My heart is shattered at the pain that has been expressed by so many as we are learning, even dating back as far as 3 decades ago, Campbell said. Campbell described the past several weeks as a personal time of reckoning and said he has had to come to grips with the emerging details of a growing number of disturbing stories and considered exactly how such a reported behavior could have happened without a single hint or mention. Some have accused Campbell of covering up Tait's double life, but Campbell said, I can with full conscience declare that my management team at Newsboys Inc. and I have had absolutely no knowledge that such behavior was happening. He explained when they first heard of Tait's behavior, there were whispers of rumors for the past couple of years that an expose story was coming out about Michael, Campbell said. Campbell said that any time a rumor would surface, the team would sit down with Michael to straightforwardly ask if he knew about it and what, if anything, he may have been hiding that someone would want to write that would be so threatening. He assured us there was nothing to the rumors, but without any details in hand, there was nothing we could even investigate, Campbell said. Campbell continued, as many online have posted, throughout Michael's career there have been rumors of his sexual preference seemingly at every turn, but that is far from the depths of what has been reported. These topics should not be conflated. The first of any sexuality rumors I've heard date back to when Michael was still in DC talk. The very first I heard was a rude, flippant comment of assumption made based on his wardrobe choices. And that is the kind of rumors we have been referenced knowing over the years. Gossip, typically rooted in what seemed a superficial basis of reason, nothing more. Michael even raised and addressed the rumors earlier on in our vetting process, back when he agreed to front the band in 2009. It was an open, transparent conversation, but there was no such story or claims of something to reference or discuss. Michael shared with us as recent as last year the distressing toll that the ongoing rumors had taken on him and his health, and asked the team to see if they could help get to the bottom of what he had referenced as hurtful lies. Many have said at least the band should have known, even if management did not. But the rest of his band are all married family men with supplemental careers who would prefer to fly home on days off instead of staying on the road between dates to hang out. Over the past many years, this band has settled into their roles and their own families that would preclude them from so many things being conjectured online, which is why they were so openly shocked upon reading the very first story. Campbell then summarized what he did know and when he knew it, saying, Michael reached out to me on December 30th, 2024 to arrange a meeting. I informed him that I was out of town for the holiday until January 5th. He then expressed concern about the gravity of what he needed to share with me, stating, Wes, I can't live a lie for another day. I need to get clean. This is going to be heavy. Our team met with Michael on January 6th, and I approached the conversation with a mindset to listen rather than judge. It was during this meeting that he revealed some of his struggles. He shared that he was living a double life, abusing cocaine as a result, and, when under the influence, he put it, engaged in sensual type activity with both men and women. He also opened up and shared with us the elaborate ways in which he had managed to keep the drug use hidden from the band. At no point in this meeting did he indicate or confess to anything that even hinted at what would ultimately be reported or alleged. But he did then resign from the band, requesting assistance in recovery from the substance abuse. Everyone agreed that Tait stepping down to seek help was a positive step forward. even despite the difficulty of making this decision with our spring tour just a few days away. In the days that followed, Michael turned to his separate personal management and spiritual counsel for closer assistance. These were individuals who had walked closely with Michael for over 30 years. Given what we shared and at the recommendation of our own spiritual and legal counsel, it was decided that Michael's privacy, firstly, as an independently contracted individual, and secondly, as a friend, should be respected at that point in time. We chose not to tell the world at the time about his substance abuse issue. It seemed his story to tell, given the steps in place. I'll say it again. We had no idea the fullness of his actions behind closed doors or that he may have been a possible risk to anyone's safety. And so we proceeded with that to approach with Michael sought treatment. Had we known the details as we now know, the response absolutely would have been different. For Newsboys, each band member has personal accountability procedures in place, Campbell said. When Michael joined our team 15 years ago, he came to us with an established accountability infrastructure from his DC Talk days. Those relationships have stuck with him this entire time, and as such, his personal manager, road pastor, and closest friends took over in rallying behind him to support him as needed while under treatment, Campbell said. Challenges and possible unknown victims await Newsboys' future, Campbell said. There is clearly much work to be done within the Newsboys organization, as we must have guardrails in place, along with a deep understanding amongst all staff that they are safe to report a problem or offense without any fear, he added. But also within the CCM music industry as a whole, there is work for us all to do. I've wondered why the rumor mill was just that for so many years, full of gossip and rumor instead of Christ-like personal confrontation, Campbell mused. How many lives could have been saved from harm if people felt comfortable to report and those who knew something had actually said something? Campbell said that he intends to make strides in our organization and can only hope this begins a larger conversation of healing and restoration, along with opportunities for mentorship for upcoming talented musicians and industry professionals who support the work of those musicians. Concluding his letter, Campbell thanked the board for allowing him to serve and said he looked forward to submitting the results of the internal investigation. I absolutely believe it will exonerate the existing members of the Newsboys, he said, as well as our management team from being aware of or party to covering up any of the reported allegations. And leave it there.
I like that
Good
story.
reading.
First impressions, Doug.
My first impression is at the first hint of anything in, like I've said, it's gone back to the DC Talk days, not the stuff that he did to men or women, but being a homosexual. Why would, as a management or owner, or I didn't know somebody just personally owned the Newsboys, but why would you allow them? Why would you even ask them? There's so many other good qualified singers. Why would you even attempt to put? There's a reason why DC Talk went on hiatus. May not have been Michael Tait, but it might have been other people. But I mean, if you've ever spent any time with the GMA, the Gospel Music Association, or going to Gospel Music Week in Nashville, it is that those statements are jokes, in my opinion, because they haven't done anything to ever squash any of the rumors, any of the stuff that happened with other artists. All they've done is hide it or try to hide it.
I mean, the thing is, though, and I mean, I will say this, like, Doug, let's just say that you had a drug problem, and I came to you and I said, Doug, I think you got a drug, you know, I've heard rumors you got a drug problem, and you say, I don't have an issue. I mean, we're friends enough that I would believe that you didn't. Now, would I watch you maybe a little better to see if, maybe you're staying up for 48 hours at a time? Probably. But at some point, you also got to take, if you're friends, you got to take somebody at your word, regardless of what the allegations are.
Okay, but let's look at it this way. After the first time, okay, give you benefit of the doubt. After
Sure.
the second time, okay. But when do we actually say, all right, Michael, we've had so many accusations or we've had so many gossip comments made where if you're running a business, you're going to have to take notice, you're going to have to take action. Whether they had substantial proof or not, it kind of falls on them.
I'm assuming they didn't.
I mean, he said they didn't, but the rumors have been there forever. It's not like I said, it's nothing new under the sun. So how long do we allow how long do we allow it to happen before we say, hey, Michael, I think you need to take a sabbatical?
I'm gonna say this, and Elijah, maybe you'll have some opinions on this too, but that was BS. That whole article was BS. It is PR because, and I'll preface it this way: Newsboys put out multiple statements dating back to when Newsboys left. When Michael Tait left the Newsboys, they put out a press release letting them know why he Michael Tait put it out, right, why he was leaving the Newsboys, blah blah blah, whatever. They did the same thing. They went on social media. They told everybody they had no idea. They were blindsided, blah blah blah. Frankly, they all just lied. They knew that there were things going on. Doug, you heard about the expose that was coming a year ago. They've heard about it for a longer time. They knew this was coming. They knew it was coming. So every single press release they put out was a press release to save face. That was it. That was all that it was about. They are liars. Newsboys organization, every single one of them, down to the really nice guys in their band right now, they're all guilty of lying. They all covered this up to some level, to some degree. Some knew more. Let's go ahead and I'll pull this article up. Elijah, why don't you, while I'm pulling this up, why don't you give your thoughts there? But that is my initial things right off the bat with that article.
Is this the Corey Asbury one?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pull that up. Go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's total BS. To me, it just, you read it, it just screams damage control, right? I mean, it's, he's talking about, that he's stepping down, right? I really think that he did know stuff. I think that he did have, some responsibility here, and they probably told him, listen, if you go out and you're gonna, and you're gonna release this statement, to kind of protect the newsboys, to protect GMA, and then we're gonna let you kind of bow out here gracefully, right, rather than fire you and make an example of you. The part that where they're talking about where, the newsboys all have family and all these other things, going on. We talked about this in the last show. When you're in a tight knit group like that, there's just no way that those guys don't know something's going on. Maybe they didn't know everything. Maybe they know every single, allegation that we've read here, but they knew things that were going on. And he
Well,
knew
they knew,
things.
Elijah, they knew 2014, whether that was consensual sex between those two people that was shown in that video. They knew that Michael Tait entered into the room while they were there. They
They
knew
knew
that
he was. They knew he was on drugs.
they knew
I
he was.
mean,
Right.
They would have had to have known. They would have
And they
had.
take any action for it. No, because the guy, they talked about the Newsboys is this guy's baby, basically, right? So like, he's doing everything he can to protect it. And even with the fall on Michael Tait, he's still trying to set them up for, some type of future here. Don't punish these guys, right? You want to continue to listen to their music and support them. I'm going to exonerate them of any wrongdoing here, right?
Yeah. Well, why don't you?
Well, they're
Hey,
on
John,
tour right now.
yeah,
The
they're
Newsboys
on.
are on tour.
Are they
Did
still?
they
I was
just
trying to
give them
figure
that?
out what's going on with them.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, Johnny, why don't you? Let's
Can't read that. It's
get
so
this
small,
scene.
dude. My eyes are terrible.
Okay, you can't see it. Doug, can you see
I
it?
could read the top part.
Hold
That's
on.
about it.
Chris,
Oh,
I
ready?
was in the short bus with
Are you-
you in school. I can't
Is that
read.
better? Is that better, Johnny?
Not really.
Did-
No, I mean,
You must not be on full screen on your thing.
I don't know what that is, dude. I
Yeah.
barely know how to work a
All right,
microphone.
I will.
Where's
go ahead.
Elijah?
Do you want me to read it again or not?
Yes, so Elijah, go ahead. All right, you ready?
Okay.
He's got it on full screen, so go ahead.
Reckless Love singer Corey Asbury
Yeah, I can
says
read that part too, Elijah.
everyone knew about Michael Tait's misdeeds. Christian singer Corey Asbury has claimed that everyone knew about Michael Tait's history of misconduct and alleged that many other Christian artists are also living double lives. Not shocking. Following bombshell reports accusing the former DC Talk and Newsboys frontman of grooming, drugging, and sexually assaulting young men. Asbury, 39, best known for his chart-topping worship hit Reckless Love, made the remarks on social media in the wake of two separate investigations, one by the Roy's Report and another by The Guardian, that detailed graphic allegations against Tait, 59. The reports, published in early June, include accusations from multiple men, including some who were minors at the time, alleging that Tait used drugs and alcohol to facilitate sexual assault. One survivor told The Guardian he was 13 years old when Tait allegedly masturbated in front of him in a public restroom. Others accused the singer of drugging them before engaging in unwanted sexual contact. In response to the reports, Tait released a statement on Instagram titled My Confession, June 10th, 2025, acknowledging his years of substance abuse and confirming much of the reported behavior. Recent reports of my reckless and destructive behavior, including drug and alcohol abuse and sexual activity, are sadly largely true, Tait wrote. For some 2 decades, I used and abused cocaine, consumed far too much alcohol, and at times touched men in an unwanted sensual way. He added, I want to say I'm sorry to everyone I have hurt. I am truly sorry. Tait's statement did not directly address allegations involving minors or specific incidents of sexual assault, but he confirmed he had left the Newsboys in January and had recently completed 6 weeks of rehab in Utah. Following Tait's admission and the mounting public reaction, Asbury responded to questions from fans on social media. When asked if he knew about the allegations before they were made public, Asbury wrote, everyone knew. Maybe not the specific details, but everyone knew. In another comment, a user asked, how many Christian bands, artists are living a double life like Michael Tait and need to breathe? Asbury, who frequently addresses what he sees as issues in the CCM industry on TikTok, responded simply, a lot. The comments quickly gained traction after Christian apologist Mike Winger reposted them on X. Winger criticized the culture of silence within the CCM industry. Maybe the reason Michael Tait got away with it for so long is because a whole lot of other people in his industry are also getting away with it, Winger wrote. And this results in a culture where exposing anyone is seen as a threat to everyone. Tait rose to prominence in the 1990s as a founding member of the Grammy-winning group DC Talk, later joining the Newsboys in 2009. He quietly stepped away from the band earlier this year, days after a viral video speculated about his sexuality. In the wake of the allegations, Christian radio networks, including K-Love, have pulled Tait's music from airplay. The Newsboys released a statement expressing shock, saying they had been led to believe Tait was dealing with personal issues but were unaware of the extent of his misconduct. When he left the band in January, Michael confessed to us and our management that he had been living a double life, the group wrote, but we never imagined that it could be this bad. Other prominent voices, including Paramore leader, singer Hayley Williams, have condemned the Christian music industry for what they described as systematic cover-ups and enabling behavior. The amount of things I have to say and the amount of people I know who were likely changed forever by this man and by the industry that empowered enabled him, she wrote on Instagram. I grew up around this, Williams continued. I am not afraid of any of these people. Most of them have written me off anyway by now. How many stories like this from this very small corner of the music industry will we hear before we realize that capitalizing on people's faith and vulnerability is the sin? The singer said that she hopes the CCM industry crumbles. And F all of you who knew and didn't do a damn thing, Williams added. I bet I've got your number. And by the way, if you're not angry too, then maybe it's time to question why. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So, and that's not the first time that people have said, we've all known, everybody's known. The show is entitled, Michael Tait, is this the CCM's biggest secret? It's not Michael Tait. It is the fact that they know their artist. Because I mean, let's pause for a second. Michael Tait is great for the Newsboys financially. He is one of the best voices in CCM history. I mean, he goes down as that one of the most influential, definitely in the last X amount of years. He has a great stage persona, charisma. He is great for Newsboys, look, image, every single thing. But those have nothing to do with his actions and how he is. So everybody is protecting their bands. When you have labels who sweep things under the rug, this is no different than a church who sweeps under their youth pastor who has been known to flirt and do inappropriate things with young ladies. And then because he's good at his job in other areas and we don't want to get caught in trouble, and the girls aren't speaking even though they may know, and if you're watching, you probably have been hurt by somebody like this in the church and swept it all under the rug. I said this on the other show I was on. One of the biggest reasons that we have atheists is not because of philosophical arguments that they find. Those will come later. When you have young believers who are hurt by the church, they first have a disdain for Christianity, and the church, and as they walk away from those things because of their disdain of the hypocrisy, they ultimately will walk away from their faith when they head to college, when they see philosophical arguments that point to the God of the Bible not being true. And it all stems from that. Most of it, not all of it, but I'm saying there's the majority of people that stem from it, and agnostic or atheist, from young believers. That is the number one reason, is Christian hypocrisy. And it is the rampant ugliness of anything to do, I'll say it and I'll say it again, with anything organized in quote unquote Christian things, and that is including churches. And I hope to offend some people with that, but that is the absolute truth. And they're all covering up, and they're all doing these things. And this is a call. John Cooper, one of the things that he wrote in there, the silence has to stop. We can go down the line. We just watched how Wes Campbell, because it's good for a business, was silent. You know who else has been silent? Guy who's on tour again. Guy that doesn't have a stained record like this. Has Toby said a single word about this? Has Toby come out and said anything? Is he just waiting for more? The silence is speaking volumes, and all we want to do is sweep it under a rug, and let it all just go away. Newsboys will come back in 2 years with a new album. Everything will be okay. And we'll just kind of forget about the Michael Tait years again. That's all they want because it's an industry primed to make money first, and ministry is way down that list.
If you see someone drinking and they're drunk and you see them get behind the wheel, you didn't drive the car, but you're just as guilty because you didn't do anything about it. And I truly believe that. Now, with that said, I can't stand absolutes, always and never. And a close second to that is everybody knew. And if everybody knew and you did nothing about it, you are just as guilty then.
Corey Asbury's
But-
just as guilty who
but-
came out and said it.
But here's the thing.
Stupidest
There
statement.
have been people that have said it, and they've been called liar. They've been called, oh, come on, you don't know the full story. And I mean, I've been talking about this crap for a long time. This isn't anything new, like I've said. And Chris,
Yeah.
when I told you that the story was coming out, it was kind of like, come on, I'll believe it when I see it kind of thing. And so that's what happens. People don't believe it. People, I mean,
No, it wasn't the fact I didn't believe it. It was the fact that I didn't want to believe it. That
Yeah,
would have
sure.
been the case.
okay. But
Mhm.
there's even other artists that we have talked about over the years that suddenly things that have been said have then come to pass. And it's, when you're a buddy, I was a talent buyer, I was a concert promoter, I ran a bookstore's music department, I did so much, I did radio, but I'm still a nobody. No one wants to listen to me. Now, maybe if Billy Graham would have gotten on stage and said, when Michael Tait was in Cleveland, Ohio, maybe this happened or something happened at the Billy Graham Crusade, or Michael W. Smith, who toured with DC Talk umpteen times, or anybody that's been on tour with the Newsboys since Tait's been in there. Like me and Elijah said before, if you're on tour with these people, if you're recording with these people, if you're doing writing sessions with these people, it's kind of hard to hide a cocaine addiction. It's kind of hard to hide an alcoholism problem. I mean, I work with people like that every day. Not that I actually have the problems, but we're working with people that have the problems, right? So you can see it right on their face as they walk into the courtroom. You can see it on their face when they're walking up into the building. When somebody comes out of rehab and they're looking good, when they have rebounded. So I'm calling bullcrap on anything the Newsboys has ever said. I'm calling bullcrap on their owner, manager, record company. And at some point, somebody is going to have to face the music for this. Somebody is going to have to take responsibility for this, because there's obviously people that have gotten hurt. There's people that have gotten, trauma, major trauma. So who's going to take responsibility for that? Is GMA going to pay the legal fees for these people that should be not only suing, but having prosecutors fight for charges against Michael Tait and the Newsboys? I think everybody should be held accountable if this stuff is actually true. And the more it comes out, the more it actually looks like, if it looks like a duck, talks like a duck, it's a duck. So I'm right now very overwhelmed with this whole situation, even more so than when it first broke. Because go ahead.
No, it's just, but if everybody, and again, if everybody knew, and then others lead double lives. Well, if you care about your industry so much, if you care about CCM music, if you care about any of that, then say who it is. then get rid of the ones who are who has these problems, or let's work with them, whatever their double lives are. But you don't. And it's so asinine to me that you could sit there and be like, oh, well, everybody's leading these double lives and everybody, well, then do something about it or shut up.
I can't disagree with you on that. I mean, the thing is that
Johnny's
like
not nice tonight.
Well, see, here's the thing. Even in the secular market, I mean, my wife can tell you that I got into a huge fight with a booking agent once, and he threatened my life. He threatened my family's life because I tried to expose him because he was flying to Thailand and going after little kids.
No.
Guess how many people in the industry actually listen to me?
2.
Zero. Actually, I can't say 0. My wife and God. Because guess what? Nothing happened until actually the FBI caught him at the airport, or Homeland Security caught him at the airport, and he got busted. The reality is that it's about money. It's always been about money. We'd be joking to say that, I mean, the only time that I can say that it was not about money, it was about God and about ministry, was Keith Green. That era, those people really believed in what they were doing and believed that their music was a ministry. I mean, they went as far as giving it away for free. You know, I have never once in my time being in the industry, besides myself, doing things for free, throwing shows and doing it for free because I want people to get saved. I want people to get ministered to. I don't see it. Definitely not with like Newsboys or DC Talk, Michael W. Smith. But I hate to say the CCM market is all about money, but it is. I mean, Johnny, you work for a radio station.
Let's pause there. Let's pause there. Let's time out. Let's all take a deep breath, because we are a little past the top of the hour, but that's okay because Johnny joined us late. So we are at the top of the hour. We are going to take a quick break. Last week we played a fun game. We're going to do that today just to calm us back down, to get us in. So this week, I've got a trivia question for you guys, brought to us by AI. So if these questions don't make sense, we're going to blame it on AI. So here's how we're going to do it.
Oh man, we did this, and
there's 3. Okay, here's the thing. There's 3 of you guys. Okay, you can look at, maybe if you don't look at the chat. Okay, you guys can't cheat here. Hands up. Make sure you guys aren't typing. Okay. Now here's how it works. Here's how the game will work. I'll ask the first question, and you guys will throw your hand up. I'll call on you. You guys get first dibs until we get a correct answer. And we've got 10 questions. We're gonna get through these quick. Okay. And so you guys in the chat room, you guys can throw those in there as well. I want to see how well you guys do as well. So here we go. This is questions that gave us from 1995 through 2005. Okay, here we go. And you know what? I can't read this and look at the same time.
Wait, was Elijah born in 1995?
Yes, okay.
I was around by then, yeah.
Yes. So here we go. Johnny, if you're going to be my honesty guy, so you're going to look at everybody, including yourself. So if you're first to answer, you can just yell out the name. Nobody speak until Johnny calls a name. Got it?
Oh, whatever.
Okay, here we go.
I trust people.
Well, here we go. You ready? What Christian hip hop group released the influential? No, that is not right. Hold on. What Christian hip hop collective released the album Heaven's Mentality in 1997, marking their debut complex theology and East Coast beats, and featuring a founding member known as the Ambassador?
Go ahead, Doug.
Got
Cross
it.
movement.
Okay, keep track. In 2001, what album by POD brought Christian nu metal to mainstream with hits like Alive and Youth of a Nation?
Satellite.
Satellite.
Saddle.
Okay, here we go.
I was just listening. By the way, I was listening to that album. It is good. I've been going through all my old stuff lately, and I'm like, I popped on that one. I'm like, man, there are some bangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
All right, here we go.
Oh, wait. Pause that. In the new Superman movie, Superman and Lois Lane get in a deep conversation about early 2000s music, and he talks about
Yeah.
POD
Oh, really?
being one of the best.
Nice.
Yeah.
And there's a show on, it was called News Radio. And it had a all-star cast. It was the show with Joe Rogan. If you remember that, it was called News Radio. It had Andy Dick in it too, and like John Lovitz and all these people in it. Do you remember that show?
Yeah, I just watched it last
Okay, well,
night.
there was an episode where the Andy Dick character in the show was like turns into like something to do with metal, and the I guess the manager went up for the whatever it is, I don't know, came to the table and picked up the CDs and was questioning what CDs that were being utilized, and one of those was the Striper CD, and picked it up and actually showed it. So there you go. There's another one. So you'll have to look up new.
I will have to find
Yes,
that
you will.
episode.
All right, here we go. Elijah, get on this one. Which group helped redefine Christian rock with a mix of rap, grunge, and hard rock under the label Forefront Records?
There's only one group I could think of.
Okay, somebody give me an answer.
DC
DC Talk. All right, okay. Which group had a sexual abuser? Okay, which underground Christian metal band, not so Christian metal band, released Bless the Martyr and Kiss the Child in 2002, marking one of Solid Strait's earliest breakout successes?
It was an under oath, wasn't it?
No, Norma Jean.
Norma Jean. All right.
Norma Jean. I was going to say Ludacris, but it was Norma Jean.
Which Christian hip hop label was founded in 2003 by an unnamed artist and Ben Washer, and would eventually dominate the music industry?
03?
Lecrae's label.
Reach
Records. You got it. Which controversial 1998 album by Christian rock band Deliverance was titled Camelot in Smithereens, signaling a moving toward more progressive metal and away from their thrash roots?
What was the question?
Look at how my AI did this. What controversial 19 album by Christian rock band Delivered was titled Camelot and Smithereens? What's the name of the album? Camelot and Smithereens. Nobody gets that one. Okay. That was bad.
Well, technically it was Stay of Execution.
Okay,
but...
see, this is where you get into trouble with AI.
And they think AI is going to take over.
Right, exactly. Okay, which band released their breakout Christian hard rock album called Collide in 2003?
Skillet.
Oh.
Skillet.
Yeah.
What rapper, often called the godfather of Christian hip hop, released House of Representatives? 1990, laying the groundwork for faith-based lyricisms and rap's golden age. Only AI could write this.
House of Representatives. Is that cross movements again?
That was cross movement.
Sort of.
But
it is. It totally messed up this question, but yes, they were going for the Ambassador, but it's not Ambassador's album.
Ambassador had none of them had a solo record until after that. album
Which
came
Christian
out.
CCM artist known for her soprano vocals and writing "I Will Remember You" won a Grammy in 2002 for Best Pop Contemporary Gospel Album with Woven and Spun? No guesses? Okay.
Jackie
Rebecca
Glasgow.
St. James is what it says. I don't know if that is exactly true or not. I think those are a little off, but
I just picked
yeah.
a name. Little Dirk over here is kind of curious why there's no
And
questions
that
about
is,
him.
me and Elijah just hung out at my son's birthday party that Doug was supposed to come to. We could have hung out together.
Thanks for the invite.
And then I did get to hang out with Doug and Jeremiah Dirt at Doug's cottage. So don't let Doug fool you. Doug has his own Lake Erie water shoreline cottage.
Wow.
Yes, he does.
Nice.
Don't let the FBI
Yeah.
know.
And Johnny, you were not invited just because you live in Canada. So there you go.
I probably couldn't get over the border anyways.
Yeah,
You
I
guys
know.
aren't letting us in.
Dude, we had a lot of illegal Canadians coming through. Those geese, they like to drop bombs.
Well, speaking of bombs, that is a great segue into what's coming next. So keeping up with this whole entire theme, I'm going to share something with you guys. I don't know if you guys seen this video. I'm going to share this video with you guys, and then we're going to kind of talk about this because this is sort of the elephant in the Christian room. On the heels of Michael Tait, also stemmed. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, there it is. I'm going to make sure that we got this pulled up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to share this. Make sure you guys can hear it.
Things and jumping out of cakes and surprising everybody walking on stage, all the concerts, all the.
Let me refresh it. Can you guys hear it?
Hi, y'all. It's Michael W. Smith. It's me here
Kanakuk,
sitting
a
at my piano.
100-year anniversary. Happy birthday. Oh, my goodness, how can that be? That's amazing. My memories at Kanakuk are incredible. I mean, doing crazy things and jumping out of cakes and surprising everybody walking on stage, all the concerts, all the sweat. Oh my gosh, it was so hot, and the sweat and the tears and the ringing of the bell, writing songs for camp all those years. I remember it so well. And so I celebrate you today and pray that your best years are ahead. Happy birthday once again to Kanakuk.
Okay, so that is Michael W. Smith on a place called Camp Kanakuk, who celebrate.
You need to watch
Yeah,
language.
sorry, 100 years of service. So he became he for that video he became under massive fire, and this is actually still dealing with the same exact theme. So I'm going to pull up. Um, where are we at? Where are we at? Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. Okay. So let me go ahead and pull this up. So here's the problem with that video. And he was very much urged to remove this. So Camp Kanakuk is a evangelical empire with a history of massive sexual abuse. These are, this is their website. It's called Facts About Kanakuk, and this is actually put on by still somebody very much Christian that is just fed up and sick of the continual abuse. Over the years, Camp Kanakuk is known for. Here is a list of. There is more timelines, but here is just the known in jail abusers, and these stories are pretty horrific when you go through them. Now we can all say, here's a you know, um, isolated cases, or we can say a lot when it comes to this kind of stuff. Well, we are seeing in a lot of these places, just like in the case of Need to Breathe, where where he said he was, abused by his brother Bear in the band Need to Breathe. But first, he first references camp counselor and youth leader, youth pastor, whatever it was. These allegations, here's the biggest problem. These allegations are running rampant every single where. You can turn on every single streaming service, and you can find documentary after documentary of church camps, Christian organizations where this stuff is all happening in, where the allegations and all the things have been just swept under rug after rug after rug after rug. And there comes a time when we have to say enough is enough. And in this instance, with this place in particular, the owner's involvement, Joe White, who in that video Michael W. Smith references in the beginning, a little bit got cut out, but references him. He shared the stage with him, all these different things over the years. They're right on this website. There are videos of police videos of them knowing. Here you can see, Joe White being interrogated and knowing that these things were actually happening or heard of these things happening. And here's the presidents. These things have all been on the record. I mean, here's just one instance of what we're talking about in regards of, and this will apply to Michael Tait and Wes Campbell. Here's one very interesting that really stood out. Is this guy Chuck Price. He says he's allegedly to have sexual abused multiple campers while working at the camp in the 1980s. It is reported that Price's Kennecott employment was terminated in 1990 after abuse was reported to the leadership, and Price admitted to having touched campers inappropriately. Because the camps did not report victim testimony nor Price's confession to law enforcement, Price has continued to work with children in other schools, sports, and ministry environments, including Kenneconk's own affiliate, Urban K Life in St. Louis. He was also photographed back on Kennecott property with Joe White in 2017. This is called sweeping these things continually under rugs. And I mean, you can go on, creepy Corby, all these different things. You talk about, nudity and with campers, and I mean, the stories go on and on and on, and hot tubs, you name it. This is an epidemic, not just in the music industry. This is in the churches. This is, I mean, me and Elijah went to a school and a church that was full of just anything that big came out. Instead of addressing it, not only getting police involved, it would be sweep these things under the rug. I'm going to tell you a horrendous story of a church, and I'm not going to name the church. I'm not going to name the person, but I will tell you a quick story. Is that there was a man who worked as a mechanic at a church. He kidnapped a 16-year-old girl in that church, took her to another state, impregnated her in another state. Finally made their way back after being kidnapped for multiple years, going to jail. After getting out of jail, the church rehires them. I'm not even kidding you. This type of behavior is why we have an epidemic of people leaving the faith, because they will associate their faith, their religion, their how they view God based upon people who claim to be of God in high-powered positions, who treat them terribly, who treat them and it's not just treating them terribly, it is abusing them. And this is happening all over the place. And it is no mystery that it happened in the Christian music world. Um, it would have been nice for Michael W. Smith to just to recant that video after he put it out there. No, that's still floating out. I took that from their Facebook page. People pleaded. Other pastors who are not for this stuff pleaded and said, Michael W. Smith, we are not attacking you. We are pleading with you to remove your video and your support of this place, because they have not had that place should have been shut down a long time ago. For whatever reason, they haven't been. And I'm not saying everything that ever came out of that place was bad, or everybody who's worked for them bad. I'm not saying that. Just like I'm not saying everybody who's in Newsboys is clearly bad. But when are believers going to take accountability for this stuff? When are we going to call this out? When are we going to stop sweeping this under the rug? And this is everything. This is, and I could go down, and don't think going to home groups you're even safer, because I'll tell you, many in our communities that watch this channel opt to leave churches to go to home groups. And in these home groups here in Ohio, we've had at least 3 groups where there was sexual abuse of the children in the home from the pastor who was leading these home groups, whether they were stepchilds or their own children themselves. This was happening there as well, and they were sweeping it under the rug. And there are multiple cases of people sweeping this under the rug for many, many years. This is a massive problem. And to answer these questions, that we can get right back into that first question is, when will grace no longer abound in these people's life who continue to live in this kind of life with the absence of the Holy Spirit, without the blood covering of Christ? Are these people covered in the blood who continue to live a life so far from a smidgen of his ways? I will tell you this, and I'll get off my soapbox here, but I had a lesson with my son this week, and it dealt around atonement, Feast of Atonement, and some of the different things. And we talked about sin, and really got into, as he enters in teenagehood, where he can sort of find himself in his walk with God, of where he's at, of when he actually falls in sin, is where that conviction comes. Does it come immediately? Does it come within moments after doing that sin? Or does it never come? Or does it come 6 months down the road after he's done it for 6 months? And I'm not trying to go down this road of, there's the prodigal and all these different things, but this is how we know if we're walking in his ways. I told him very simply, as a young man, soon to be man, just growing in that, is when you do fall, when you may see something, did it convict you right away that you wanted to take it right to him right away? These people have to be so far removed, is what I'm saying, from the presence of the Holy Spirit walking in their lives, if he's there at all, for them to continue to walk in these things every single day. Go ahead and discuss.
I mean, I look at what Matthew 18 states about, the hurting of the children, or, just how we look at, and I know I've said this before too, that whether you're a Christian pastor, you're a musician, you're a cop, you still have to answer for what you do. So, like it says, but who shall cause pure of these little ones who believe in me to fall? It wears better. Well, let me American Standard Version, because I can't read King James. But who shall cause one of these little ones that believe on me to stumble? It is profitable for him that a great millstone should be hanged about the neck, and they should be sunken in the depths of the sea. I mean, I don't know how much more clear God could be about these kinds of situations. But it goes even deeper because we have people that are hiding other things, not just sexual things, but the sexual stuff is so much more damning to somebody's life. Um, I don't know how many people are listening or watching that have ever been sexually molested or hurt by somebody that they actually cared about. It's a travesty. Um, I don't know. I mean, I know I've talked about it on the show before about what had happened to me with a cousin, and the only thing that I can say is that um, I don't know Michael W. Smith's intentions on that video. I have seen Michael W. Smith preach in church, so I know, and I've seen his heart on so many times on display. So I don't want to judge Michael W. Smith on that, but even if you just open up Google and put that camp's name, it's all there. It's not hidden. So I'm just in awe right now of why we are even supporting any of these artists anymore. Why we're supporting the Christian music scene anymore? If this is it, is this the legacy for everyone? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, but there's always bad apples. You can't say that it's everybody in the industry. There's bad people for sure. But there are good and there are those people who are anointed and who are doing it for the right reasons. Just got to figure out which ones are which.
Man, it's getting harder every day to see which ones
Sure,
are.
for sure. And we hope that, and we pray that the decisions that we're making and the artists that we're choosing to listen to are align with what we believe.
I mean, Elijah, you and I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to misspeak, but probably are the only people that listen to Under Oath, like old Under Oath. I'm not talking newer Under Oath, but even when Dallas was fronting the band and that time period of Christian music, everybody didn't want to have that moniker on them. So what they do? They drank, they smoked. I mean, now I can't even see Under Oath on TikTok or on um, Facebook or Reels anymore without somebody dropping the F bomb. And you know, I mean, Aaron Gillespie was in the Almost, and it was one of the most worshipful bands I've ever heard. I've never been to a show where the spirit dropped like that, and now it meant nothing. So, was it all a lie? I mean, I guess that goes back to what Chris asked earlier about um, the once saved, always saved. Is it were? I mean, were they really saved? Were they just doing it to make money? MXPX. I can get a litany of bands that came out from 1994 to uh, early 2000s that no longer or truly ever really walked the ministry edge. So I'm just
Go,
kind of
Elijah.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of artists out there that, you know, it's harder to make it in the mainstream, you know, and they jumped into the, you know, Christian music industry, and you know, either use that as a stepping stone or, you know, kind of played the part when they needed to. I agree with Johnny. I think that there's legitimate people out there that are, you know, doing it for the right reasons. I don't think you can throw the whole industry out, you know, because of some bad apples. But in the same vein, I feel like the lines are getting more and more blurred as time goes on, where um, you know, you start to question, you know, some of these artists and stuff, you know, like you're saying with Under Oath, Doug, it's, you know, and they act like they stand for something at one point, and um, then they want to start to, like, you know, blend more into like the mainstream stuff like that. They want to get a bigger following. They want to be respected by other groups just besides, you know, you know, Christians, and so they start to compromise, right? Um, but you know, the thing with Michael W. Smith, like you guys said, is just he's there. There's no way that he can't have been made aware of what was going on at that camp. So um, how can you promote something like that? How can you not retract that and just put your name behind something like that? It's just really just such an awful thing. Like, I would not, if I were him, I wouldn't want to be associated with anything close to that. You know, with all these allegations coming out about this camp, and uh, I think that there's,
Most of them aren't allegations. Most of them have been proven. A lot of them have been proven.
yeah,
And obviously,
but
those guys are in prison.
Yeah.
A lot of
yeah.
mugshots.
So, you know, how can you even go and put your name anywhere near anything like that? You know, it's disappointing. And like you said, there's churches, pastors, you know, different people in power in within music industry and different, you know, Christian organizations that are um, not doing the right thing by not speaking up, by not you know, shedding a light on, you know, some of the people that are, uh, you know, have found their way into these different organizations and groups um, uh, that are just rotten to the core, to be honest, you know. And it's sad because then you see like kids and stuff like that that are the victims and suffer the most because people are not, you know, stepping up and doing the right thing, especially, you know, people that are claimed to be followers of Christ. So it's sickening.
Yeah.
With
Yeah.
that,
Go ahead, Jen.
I was just gonna say, with that said, there was an interview done a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago. CCM did it with Chris Dudley from Under Oath, and he talks about his relationship with God and his faith inside of the band of Under Oath. And in all honesty, if you got some time, you can go and listen to that. It's actually really good insight from him, who does have a faith and who, you know, is hardcore Jesus loving. So
I mean, so even I'll say friends of mine like POD, one main member still stands as the only one that really believes in God anymore. But yet, at one point, the whole band believed in God. Was that all a lie? Or was that where they were at that time? Or, you know, that's the question. How many people got the wool pulled over their eyes? Because I mean, I can name 5 bands right off the rip: Under Oath, Zao, POD, King's X. Um, yeah, they'd even say, well, Project 86, Stave Saker. I mean, the list goes on. Um, I mean, even Dirt and I talked about it this, while we were driving to audio feed. where almost every single MC that we know of from Christian hip hop that started back in the 80s to now are no longer walking.
Hmm.
There's maybe a handful. One, KJ, maybe Crumb, Plato. Same with the metal bands from the era of when Christian metal was huge. There has to be accountability for what you say and what you do. There's people's lives at stake. I mean, that's why I get so angry when I hear, "Well, I'm just a musician. I mean, I may be a Christian, but I'm just a musician." No, you have a pulpit to stand from every night. You're rocking a stage, just like a pastor is. So your calling may not be as a pastor, but your calling is to be of a minister.
Yeah. Well, the music industry, the Christian music industry, is a extension of Christian churches. It's an extension of Christian culture. It's an extension of all these different things. Oh, I'm not saying we can't trust people, but you know, I have young child. I have a very young child. Elijah's got young child. Your boys are more grown, Doug, like my boy, and Johnny, yours are teenage age too. Um, it becomes a little bit different, but not really, right? I think this becomes. I mean, think about how bad we would feel as parents sending our kids off to camp and then coming back and something happened to them. So think about them going to just youth group and something happening to them there. It's just and we think it's safe because it's Christian. This is where this stuff is happening. We go and we talk about all the different people who have come out who have been hurt, who have they're different. They'll have conflicting sexualities in their lives. Why do you think they're having this stuff? They've been abused by somebody, and then if it's centered around the church, how do they get healing from just picking up the Bible or going to God when that's already a huge massive stumbling block to them? It's just an extension. The music industry we're seeing is just an extension without a real lack of proper leadership of things that are all about protecting the brand. Everything's about protecting a brand, their denomination. Then you get into the music industry like Newsboys, protect the Newsboys brand so that they can continue on. Was that whole Wes Campbell article, in my opinion, it was just to protect your brand. And yeah, you know what? That Adam's not gonna, lead singer, he's not gonna probably walk down the path of Michael Tait. But I guarantee you, um, I don't know him. I've actually met him at a live festival. Um, really nice guy. What if the Newsboys, they've been dropped from their label? Now there's no money to pay him to be full time. What happens, when he's not going to start another band, and 5 years from now he's been just looks at the ugliness of this whole entire thing and he's like, I don't even know if I'm a believer anymore 5 years down the road. That's like the story of everybody who's been in Christian music industry as an artist
Pete
who
Stewart.
burnt. They've all been burnt, and then they all walk away from their faith, just like these young teenagers, young children who've been continually abused. And it's not just sexually. It is. I'm not trying to pick on churches. I've been around them a long time. I know how these hierarchies work. And I will say this: every little church operates as its own Vatican. We'll sit here in evangelicalism and we'll condemn Rome. but they're all little mini Vaticans. There's one person on top with a little board that helps to control that one person on top and every single thing. So every single church has all their dirt behind it. And you go to a church, you may never see that stuff, but if you're on staff, you hear those things. You know what's going on. I mean, one of the churches that was around here, they let a young man who was a prison reformation program around here. They let him into the church. He went in at 19 for manslaughter or assisted manslaughter, but he wasn't the one who did the murder. So he's like 30, in his mid 30s now, 30 years old, whatever. Here he is as a young man. They put him in a church where he does like custodial work and does some things, and he somehow picks a married woman to sort of, go for, and start it with sexting text, and then it all came with sex on property. Then it became all these things. He had access to keys and rooms. When it happened to a 40-year-old woman who was married with children, destroyed a whole family. That happened on the church's watch. Yeah, the woman had a lot of the play to do with it. But you know what? What would they have been saying if that would have happened to a 16-year-old girl? What would they have been saying if that happened to a 16-year-old girl? No checks, no balances, nothing proper. And I'm not saying that people can't be reformed, but this is where this stuff is occurring and happening. And guess what they would have done if for the majority of the church? Guess what? The majority of the church knows nothing. I only know that because I know people who are on staff, and those stories come out, and then you go, here's these horrific things that occur and happen, and all Christians do is we sweep it under a rug, and then we use Christianese verbiage to smooth it all over. When is this nonsense going to stop? Or we're gonna. It doesn't matter what group it is. I've seen it in every area, and frankly, my trust is lost with people, but my trust isn't lost with Him. I know who He is, and so I am firm in my faith on who He is. But with people, it is over the last 6-7 years, it has waned for me to put my children under the care of other people on a continual basis.
Yeah, but Chris, that's your choice. Like, you're choosing because you've heard of the stories. Like, well, you can also focus on a lot of the positive stories. Like, geez, it sounds like we're just sitting here like, well, that person did the raping and we hired him and now he's the youth pastor. So there's more rapings. Like, there are churches that are leading thousands of people to Christ. Why can't we focus on a lot of that? Like, it just seems like we're here to poo-poo a whole bunch of, we're poo-pooing the Christian industry, we're poo-pooing the church, yes, there are bad people, and bad people are doing some really terrible things in church and outside of church too. But there's also a lot of good things, a lot of people doing some good things on it too. So I think the reality of it is that, yeah, you know what? We live in a world where there is a lot of sin that is taking place. We could focus on the bad, or we could focus on the positive and go from there.
Now, I would tell you this, as much as we would agree to that, and I would agree with that. If those things directly happen to your children, you would think differently.
No, for sure. 100% for sure.
See, that's where it's like when we look at it, every time that these believers do this, they mock the gospel. They mock Christ. And that's probably the biggest travesty. So out of everything that happened, you look at the Carl Lentz situation, you look at all these different things out here, and we just look at this over and over and over. This goes back every time you have a big ministry. I mean, the only one yet to have fallen in like this sexual manner, I guess, is Joel Osteen probably, but he's got his other issues and problems. But we've seen it from the Jimmy Swaggarts and all these other people who's just died, right? And all these, Jim Baker and all that stuff, right? All this stuff has been going on for forever. It's part of that. I mean, it goes back to David. David did the same thing in the scriptures, but not necessarily with children. then again, it doesn't give the age of Bathsheba. But we know this is an epidemical problem that that this show, I think, is designed is a checks and balance for those of us that will have ears. That yeah, it can be tough, and this is how I would end my portion, and I'll let you guys have the last say. Is this is for us that will want to do the will of God, that do want to do the will of God, that when we do sin, we 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 live right in that conviction, and we repent, and we work, and repent means to turn from, not to just continually struggle with. It means to turn from. And this is a reminder for us to not fall in these ways. So this is for us to do better. This isn't to say church sucks, Christians suck, which in a lot of cases all of us do to a degree. We all suck. But you know what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to say, just like John Cooper in his thing, whether you love him or hate him, it was a call to not be silent. As much as he said he wanted to be silent about this, he couldn't be silent. As much as Toby Mac sits here and says nothing, it speaks volumes when he doesn't say anything. When he says we can't continue to support this. I mean, it should go. This is done, and this isn't just us four guys talking. This should come straight from the industry standard of, oh well, we're gonna silence this is we're just gonna remove all their music, and we're just gonna just hope it all goes away. We'll remove them. That's just sweeping it under the rug. That's like taking the guy that does this in church and like, okay, you can't come to church for like a year, and then after that year, yeah, I know you kidnapped that girl, but after a couple years, we're all gonna forget about it and we'll just welcome you back and put you back on salary and give you a lesser position where you're not
Not
seen
all
it.
churches are like that.
Not all church. Hey, I will tell you this: more churches are probably like that than not like that, but prove me wrong, churches.
But
There you go.
it's the all or nothing. It's the absolutes. There are going to be bad churches, just like there are going to be great churches. We could focus on the negative, I guess, or we could find one that works for us.
All
I'll
right.
agree with I'll agree with Johnny. I think that there's you know there's bad people that find their way into churches. Churches are filled with imperfect people. Every single one of us here is an imperfect person. You're never going to find the perfect church. There will always be, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years, not 50 years from now, 100 years from now, there will always be churches where there is um, something bad that's happened, and there's going to be, a pastor or somebody that's in a position of power that's going to abuse that and going to, um, cover it up for their own gain. But having said that, that's always going to occur. But there's so much positive that most churches do to impact people, to see people get saved. You know, I've been to a lot of different churches throughout my life. Chris knows that I've been to some pretty crappy churches, right? And I've also been to some pretty great churches. I've been through multiple churches where it was just completely gutted from the inside out and fell apart. It's awful to watch. It's awful to experience. Um, didn't make me lose faith uh, in still going to church. I still am skeptical sometimes of things, but I don't, I never put a pastor on a pedestal because they're just an imperfect person like any of us. But, um, the church I'm going to now, I really like a lot. Is it a perfect church? No, it's not. Um, I play in the worship team there on Sunday. As of right now, we have 30 people that are going to get baptized. That's a really positive thing,
It's amazing.
So, um, But so I'll say that. So I'm not going to beat up on the churches. There's always going to be imperfection there. I've been through a lot of it, but I've also been through a lot of positive stuff with churches throughout my life. As far as the music industry goes, my last couple thoughts on that were with Corey Asbury making his comments about like everybody knew about Michael Tait, right? That is kind of like an extreme thing to say everybody knew, but if it was well known enough that he knew about it, then like we said, uh, his record company had to know about it, the band had to know about it. I would think that Toby Mac has to know something about that, right? I mean, he's got to had some type of contact with them all these, at the very least, his like cocaine, drug, alcohol issues, right? And they weren't addressed. So there's people that are, staying silent there and allowing his behavior to continue, which is then, affecting other people, creating victims, allegedly. Um, so there's got to be, there definitely has to be accountability. I agree with that with Chris as far as that goes. So pass it to Doug.
I want to do a lighter show next time. Can we do the March Madness one again? That was fun.
It's
That
not
was
March,
fun.
but yes, it's not March, but yes, we could do something fun.
I mean, I was gonna close with I wanted an investigation into Salty and Saltina from Kids Praise and find out what might have happened to the singing rats and stuff like that. But I guess I mean Johnny, I agree with you 100%. Where there's bad apples, there's actually good apples. I mean, we see it in every line of work. We see it in every uh, area of life. However, music, and I know probably with you, just like it is with me, is like with Elijah, is with Chris, is such an important part of your life. Um, and that when you were a young Christian kid, I mean, I've been growing up with this stuff since I was like 8 or 9 years old. And to see people that you once revered as heroes, whether you want to call that idol worship or whatever, but you considered them as heroes. You considered them as people that, um, because they were put in those bookstores or music stores and played on the radio, were commissioned by whomever to be that light to fall as far as this has fallen right now. And it's only going to get worse. I mean, there are still good things. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, there was at least 100 people that were at audio feed that were in a Bible study that Dirk put on, and the Holy Spirit was there. God was evident, and people got touched. That still happens, but when you see your heroes fall, and it's a hard crash such as this, it hurts you. It hurts deep. I mean, so, I mean, I guess that's why I'm kind of like still befuddled and upset. And, I mean, I always have a lot to say, but with this, there's not much to say because it's just sad. Because there's people that were saved through these people. There's people that these are the soundtracks of their Christian walk. It's not like it's Metallica or it's Limp Bizkit. It's DC Talk and the Newsboys. Two of the largest bands that ever came out of Christian music. I mean, it's hard, but please let's figure out a fun show.
Yes, we will. And I will say I am not throwing anybody. I am not trying to be um, super anti anything. I've said a lot of things here tonight, but I will say this. Um, there's a few things to say. Um, Oftentimes, the negativity will outweigh the positivity, and this that will always be like if you grew up like if you had a dad who was an alcoholic, but he was great 75% of the time when he drank, um, and you were home,
It sucked.
it was awful, right? And so that 25% probably formed your life, and that other 75% walked away. Even if it's 5% bad or 95% good, I mean, this is a call. All I'm saying is this is a call for us and churches and for everybody who claims him to actually start to obey him and actually do the right things and walk away from that. One of the verses, and I'll end it here, at least in this regard, is in regards of, um, you know, the Jerusalem Council. They tell us, they debate it in the early church in Acts 15 on what was the prerequisites. I said that wrong. for sorry, um, for the new converts to come in to the temple, to the synagogue, to the church. Okay, and they and all the churches we'll talk about these things, but look at these very specific things. And I'm not saying these are all the things that now a lot of people now put this as like these are the things that Gentile believers are supposed to do, and forget about God's instructions and his laws. That's a different discussion, different show. But I'm just going to read this really quickly. It says that they were to abstain from things contaminated by idols and acts of sexual immorality. So if we stop right there, the standard for a new convert to come in is they must been abstained from sexual immorality to enter the church. Means you couldn't be struggling with pedophilia to come into the synagogue. So these are the things that we do. And today in churches, we have the mindset, and this is another debate and another topic for down the road. But we treat churches as this mindset. We have this mindset is that churches are hospitals. But if you look at the Jerusalem Council, it said here are the things that you must abstain from. You must abstain from blood. You must abstain from all of these sexual immorality practices, which were associated. And ironically, if you look at the historical context of those, they were associated with pagan Baal worship, all these different things that were happening at that time. That they must abstain from these things. It wasn't, hey, we're a hospital. You're still doing your pagan horrible rituals that dealt with blood sacrifices and children stuff. You can't bring that in. And it further goes, it says all the rest of that stuff basically is how that passage ends in Acts 15 is, as ancient generations Moses, those who preach him in every city since he is read in the synagogues every Sabbath day, meaning that here are the things that you need to do to come in, that you cannot bring this into our churches. All the other stuff you're going to learn, just like because Moses was read, you're going to learn all of these things. And this is Acts 15. This is the new covenant church. This is after Christ. Here's the instruction. And so if we look at it this way, is if our churches are full of this stuff, we're not doing a very good job teaching that stuff. And if the people in the churches are still actively involved in those things, what should be the response and this is a question for churches, for everybody. This isn't for us to decide. This should be for those leaderships in what they do in regards. And I would say sweeping it under the rug is not the clear answer according to that scripture, because it's not welcome. Those things are not welcome in church. It's not a hospital for those people. It's not. It says it right there. It's not. We can disagree on that, but it's not a hospital for those people engaged in that amount of high level sexual immorality. It is not there for it. It is not there. We can debate it. People in the comments, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I will say that church discipline, or however we view those things, industry standards should say this is not welcome. These things are not welcome, because it not only destroys the life of the individual doing them, it destroys the life of the victim and the victims, of the families of those victims. It's, and so I know it's a very heavy topic. It has rocked our world. We didn't choose that. This was to be our topic over the past 2 weeks. We're going to close it at 2 times. We gave this topic a discussion, and we pray and hope that we don't have to return to this. We pray and hope that things don't get swept under a rug, and all things come to light. I mean, if we look at what it says in Ephesians 5 tells us to expose this stuff. That is the duty of believers. So I know we can seem very, and I'm not trying to come at you, Johnny, but I'm not trying to be that. But there is a call for exposure according to Ephesians in these things, and I think we've exhausted that. I think we've done our job in that. And we don't always have to do that. I think moving forward, and I think Robbie always had this point too. There's so much positivity and goodness in even just in Christian music alone, just turning it on and hearing an uplifting word. That may just get us through our day. Johnny probably hears those testimonies still on a week-to-week basis of people getting an email coming in, without your radio station, I probably would have ended my life. Those things are happening. And so there's a lot of positivity. There's a lot of positivity of people walking into churches. And if they didn't walk in and hear a good word from that pastor that day, or somebody came around and put their arm around them genuinely and told them that they loved them and led them to a Bible study or whatever, they may not be here. I mean, at the conferences that we did, just by putting them on, we had speakers that people who are in the chat came right up to and said, if it wasn't for being here and being around you, I would have taken my life this weekend. So we can't throw out the good, because that's what Satan wants us to do. So, Johnny, I fully agree with you. I'm sorry if I was too harsh. So please accept my apology, everybody. But I was just being passionate. So
I want to end on this. My wife, so we plant a garden each and every year because food is so expensive. And for an entire week, my wife had neglected this garden, and she looked out the window and she's like, I got to get out there because there's so many weeds. And I said, what do we care about weeds for? Who cares? She goes, because weeds take away the sunlight, they take away the nutrients, and they suffocate what is good. We need to do the same thing for the Christian music industry. We need to do some weeding. We need to take out the bad and focus on the good to plant something beautiful for it to grow. With that said, it's National Hot Dog Day today. I'm going to go have a hot dog. I love all you guys, and we're going to do this again soon.
Yes.
he just had dinner 2 hours ago. Are you kidding me?
Homie, I don't get this fat for nothing.
No, we know how much weight you've lost, so you're still in good shape. So
Rounds of shape.
yeah.
Wow.
And he plays soccer. So we will come back to another show sometime, but we can't do it just the four of us. This just doesn't always feel right.
I miss Robbie, dude.
Come back, Robbie.
And
We need
so
Robbie back.
I will say this, Doug, when Johnny gets off, That guy's going to come on again, and so we're going to do that right before we go off. We'll let these guys go, but we'll stay on the air and let them come in before we end. And
Bro, I gotta
just
be
5
up at
minutes.
6
Yeah,
a.m.
just 5 minutes. He's in the back. He's in the green room, so I don't want to keep these guys. So let's make a call out there. But hey, before we go, I don't know if any Doug or Elijah, if you want to say anything. There is an immediate prayer request. So our friend Rob Blackwell, who was originally one of the original Sound Off members before we even launched, he was like part of our original like first meeting, and he's wasn't able to make it with his commitments and everything. He's been in the hospital, and so if you can pray for him. He has not updated me today, so he is in definitely some need of some prayer. Multiple surgeries, abscesses in the stomach. So they're just trying to figure out some stuff. He called me at like 6 something this morning, and I didn't answer because I was sleeping. And by when I woke up, I tried to call him, and I didn't get anything. So I know he could use our prayers. So that's Rob Blackwell is his name. So if you guys can keep his name in your prayers, that would be appreciative. So I think that is it for Sound Off, guys. I'm sorry it ended so long. Johnny, you were 15 minutes late, so we ran 15 minutes over. So that is it. We got 2 hours out of Johnny, and that's it, guys. We're gonna end on a really quick 4 or 5 minute interview by Doug, and you guys have a blessed night. You guys can stay here for this. I'm just gonna pull you out of there. So,
Bye.
all right. Do you guys want to stay here while we pull it in?
I'm out.
Okay.
Hot dogs.
All right. All right, Elijah, you can stay if you want. So, okay. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna get him in the green room. Okay, Elijah. Well, stay right there. I'll be right back. Doug, why don't you share with the audience?
I love
Come on,
how he
Doug.
does this to me. Hey, you're gonna do an impromptu interview, but I'm trying to see where we're at with this. Elijah, why did he make me do this? I gotta be up in 5.5 hours.
Oh man. Well, you know, Chris.
I'm losing connection. Nah, I mean, this was a good fun show tonight, but
All right, I'm gonna bring him in.
you there? MC Faith, what's up? Can you hear me, MC Faith? I think we're having issues again. Chris, MC Faith, can you hear me, man?
You're muted.
You're muted, Chris.
Looks like his connection's bad again. Let me see if. Hold on. Bro, can you hear me? Dude. Why is his shirt off? um, you know soldiers of the faith?
Me?
Yeah,
No, I've never heard of them.
yeah. All right. Well, um, I'm private messaging him. He's typing. Yeah, his audio is not working. All right. Okay, guys, that is it. We're gonna sound off. You guys have a great night.
All right, man.
We'll do this. We'll get him in next time. All right.
Cool.
Sorry about that, everybody. Okay.
Good night, guys.
All right. Have a good night.
this can't hold me. No man. Start a revolution with no man control. Start a revolution with the breath in my lungs. Sound off.